We want to understand something about land tenure security. That is, how secure is the tenure of land that we engaged in? How sure are you, or how certain can one be that the land which he or she is using for any purpose under different tenure system is safe and secure, and therefore no one can claim about it without following due process? So that is what we want to look at when we talk about the land security. But what exactly do we mean by land tenure security? Security of tenure is understood in many ways, but the most common use or understanding is that security of tenure is the surety that one's right to land is recognized and acknowledged by others, and therefore that right is protected when it is challenged under specific circumstances. It can also be understood as the right of individuals and groups of people to effective protection by their government against forcible evictions. Therefore, people with land tenure which is not secure, they may face the risk of eviction, or other individuals might come up and claim the same land. So to avoid instances where other people might come and claim that the land that you use also belongs to them, we engage in what we call the tenure security. So tenure security, therefore, is the right of a person to remain on a given piece of land and to use it and to make profit in ways that are acceptable by the laws of a given country. So basically, when we talk about land tenure security, we are basically concerned about how secure, how sure are you that the land that you're using, no one else, now or in future, may come and claim about the same kind of land, and therefore people start fighting over the same, and the process eviction results. So to avoid that, people go for land tenure security. So we want to look at the various ways on how security of land or security of tenure can be secured or achieved. One of the sources of the security of tenure is the community and groups. Community and groups, in the sense that there are certain resources, land resources, that are known to belong to certain communities or to belong to certain groups. And in that case, over the years, it has remained acceptable that such resources belong to such individuals, and therefore individuals that belong to that group may claim ownership of that group on the basis of the fact that the land that is in question has traditionally belonged to and used by that particular group. We know of so many cases where land belonged to communities and belonged to groups. These could be forests, they could be water sources, they could be grazing lands, and they could be even agricultural lands that are known to belong to a given community since time immemorial. And by virtue of that, that gives them security of that particular land. No one else can come up and claim that they also own the same piece of land. And even if other people would wish to use the same piece of land, then they have to secure the permission of a given community. Uh, this form of security of land is largely secured through the customary arrangements, so that it is known that certain lands are traditionally belonging to certain groups or certain communities. And over the years, like I've said, they have used it for grazing, for forest resources, for watering their livestock, for farming, among other activities. And they therefore claim ownership of such land. So community and groups is also one way of how tenure, security of tenure can be secured. The other way through which security of tenure can be secured is through governments. Governments. That is, governments can give the political consideration or political recognition of a given land and declare that it belongs to a certain individual, it belongs to a certain group. And in that case, therefore, the government will use its machinery to protect the owners of a given land against exploitation or eviction by other people who may claim ownership of the same land, so that government may accept the illegal encroachment and settlement of a community on said forest lands and also undertake to evict them. And government usually recognize the right of the community to occupy the land. But it's also important to note that government does not go as far as recognizing the rights of individual people within the community. So that when we talk of this, there are instances, for instance, where individuals who are landless choose to become squatters in a given piece of land. That land might be government, or that land might be individuals whose rightful owners are not known, or what we call absentee landlords. So if communities or members of a group decide to squat on a government land, and over the years, the government see need to recognize them and therefore carve out a section of that land and therefore give them. In that case, they shall have secured the security of their land through government intervention. So government is an important source of security of tenure. The other important source or the other important ways through which security of land tenure or tenure can be achieved is what we call the formal legal system, that is through the use of existing laws and registering a given piece of land, and then appropriate documents that recognizes ownership of a given piece of land to certain individuals or groups secured. And therefore, the state may provide security in general by affirming the rights that people hold, as well as through specific measures, such as providing protection against trespass. We have seen cases, for instance, where government can deploy the security agencies to protect certain individuals against invaders. This is because it is the responsibility of the government to ensure that Individual property and group property is protected against other people who may be out to exploit them. So government can provide tenure security to individuals and groups. One, through providing security to ensure that people are not forcefully evicted from their land. But again, government can also adjudicate the land. That is, divide the land with the rightful owners and then provide documents that prove ownership of such land to particular individuals. This is in Kenya what we call the land title deed. The title deed bears the name of the owner of the land and the amount of land that that particular individual owns, as well as the place and the number, the plot number. So government can come in through what we call the formal legal systems. In Kenya, we have several land laws that government agencies can rely on to recognize ownership and in the process register particular individuals as the rightful owners of a given piece of land in question. The other method that is often used is what we call coercion. Coercion simply means the use of force. So this is the application of force to secure land or to secure tenure. And it is common mainly in the countries or in societies that are affected by war or by insecurity. Tenure security there, in this case, therefore, is achieved through coercive structures that normally emerge in the absence of state law and other institutions. And this form of security has been blamed for preventing the development of strong communities and legal systems. If you go to some countries that are afflicted by wars, countries such as DRC Congo, a significant portion of the country's land is in the hands of rebels and warlords. And they're using such lands to process minerals, process timber products, among other things. And they use force to ensure that nobody else claims ownership of the same land. This is because they believe that through the use of force, they are therefore in a position to ensure that they secure the land and they exploit the land for the resources and natural resources that the land might have. So the use of warlords through the use of guns and arms to protect outsiders from accessing and using such pieces of land, that is what we call coercion. And we have said it is not the best way of securing tenure. This is because when we use force, it means that we're becoming blind to other structures that society could employ to ensure that land is managed according to regulations and rules. Again, where coercion applies, the exploitation of land resources may be done in a manner that does not preserve it for future generation. It could be total exploitation, and in the process, the land can become degraded and resulting therefore in inability of future generation to utilize it for purposes of economic development. So normally it's not the best way, but again, it is recognized in literature also as a method that could be used under extreme circumstances to secure land tenure. Those are the major sources or the major methods of securing the land tenure. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening to me.